Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang in California with Morsels of a Thought number 1562. I've come this many consecutive days to you in the mornings, my time at 5:10 a.m. And I am going to be switching over to 6:10 a.m. Saturday next week. So on Saturday the 19th, we will see Epictetus today and next Saturday. Today it's at 5:10 a.m. and next Saturday it will start to be at 6:10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Daylight Time, Pacific Daylight Time. Daylight Time means that Standard Time would have been an hour smaller, shorter. So it would have been 4:10 or 5:10 versus 5:10 or 6:10. So, okay. So we're reading about Epictetus. We're still in. And I have pulled out a few items from on self-possession. I have pulled out some more of that. We did that 10 days ago. Let me see. Was it 10 days ago? Yeah, it was 10 days ago. So it's time for us to do it again. Um, Wednesday, last week, I did it for Words and Wisdom Wednesday. We're going to keep Stoics on Saturdays for now. Bookmark right here. Okay, so we are reading on self-possession. Goodness is essentially a certain state of will, and so is badness. Okay, and we read up to number 16, but wasn't that how Socrates came to be treated as he was by the Athenians? 16. Slave, why say Socrates? State the facts as they are. That was how Socrates' body came to be arrested and hauled off to prison by those who were physically stronger. That was how his body came to be given hemlock to drink. That was how his body came to breathe its last. Does this strike you as remarkable, as unjust? Is it for this that you rail at God? Well, did Socrates get nothing in exchange for them? What to his mind was the essence of goodness? Should we listen to you or to him? And what does he say? Anytus and Meletus can kill me, but they cannot harm me. And if this is what God wants, so be it. No, we're going on to new stuff here. No, you need to prove that a person with worse judgments prevails over someone who's his superior in judgments, but you won't be able to prove that or even come close. I mean, there's the law I mentioned, the law of nature and of God, that what is superior shall always prevail over what is inferior. In what respect? In whatever respect it's superior. One person is physically stronger than another. Several people are stronger than one. A thief is stronger than a non-thief. That's how I lost my lamp, because the thief was better than me at doing without sleep. But he paid dearly for it. In return for a lamp, he has become a thief, untrustworthy, less than human. And he thought he was turning a profit. So someone has grabbed me by the toga and is pulling me into the agora. And the agora means farm or big field, big area. Into the agora. And then other people are shouting at me, "So, philosopher, what good have your judgments done you? Look, you're being hauled off to prison. Look, you're going to be beheaded." But what kind of introduction to philosophy could I have studied that would have enabled me not to be pulled when a stronger man takes hold of my toga, and to avoid being thrown into prison if 10 men drag me there? So what else have I learned? I've learned to see that everything. Oh, hasn't that lesson done you good? Why, why then do you look to be benefited by anything other than what you've learned? So as I sit in prison, I say, This person who's shouting these things at me is missing the point. He doesn't get it. He just hasn't bothered to find out what philosophers say or do. Don't mind him. I have to set a timer because I like to be here for a certain amount of time, and I forgot to set the clock. So here we are. Here. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. There we go. Oh, okay. There we go. Now I can see something that tells me I might yet have to read this to you. Okay. So then 27. Now, come out of prison again. All right. If my imprisonment is of no further use to you, if it ever becomes useful to you again, I'll go back in. For how long? For as long as reason chooses that I associate with my body. And when it chooses to end that association, take my body, and may you fare well with it, just so long as I don't relinquish it irrationally or out of weakness or for a trivial reason. Again, that's not what God wants, because He needs the universe to be as it is and the earth to be populated by creatures such as us. But if He sounds the retreat, as He did for Socrates, I must obey Him as a soldier obeys his commanding officer. So, should we spread these notions far and wide? What for? Isn't it enough just to believe them oneself? When children come to us clapping their hands and saying, "Hooray! Today's the Saturnalia," do we respond by saying, "There's nothing to cheer about"? Of course not. We clap back at them ourselves. You should do the same. When you're finding it impossible to get someone to change his mind, you should think of him as a child and clap back at him. If you don't want to do that, just say nothing. Now, I have an example of I am personally politically against the guy Trumpism. I don't like, and I have a friend who helps me out in my house, and she is for Trump. And so when I say, "Oh, Trump is a narcissist and he wants to see the world's reaction to everything he does, and that's why he's doing all these tariff things," and she said, "Uh-huh, narcissist." And the next day, I said, "This narcissist wants to do this thing." And she said, "Yes." That's a dude. I was like, oh my goodness, that is hilarious. But if you don't want to do that, just say nothing. We need to bear these ideas in mind, says Epictetus, and when we're called on to cope with a difficulty such as those I've been talking about, we should be aware that the time has come to show whether we've been well educated. You see, a young man, fresh from school and faced with a difficulty, is like someone who's trained himself in how to reduce syllogisms, and, if offered an easy syllogism, says, "I'd rather you offered me a subtle and complicated one. I need the practice." Wrestlers, too, don't like to be matched against lightweight training partners. "He'll never get me off the ground." That's what a gift, not you. When opportunity knocks, you're bound to weep and say, "I want to continue with my education." To learn what? If you didn't learn the theory so as to be able to put it into practice, what was the point? Imagine that there's someone sitting here today who, feeling himself to be in labor, says, "Is there no difficulty coming my way that's comparable to the one that came to him?" Am I to waste my time sitting in a corner when I could be winning a crown at Olympia? When, when will someone bring me word of that kind of contest? That's the attitude you all ought to have. Even among Caesar's gladiators, there are some who chafe because we say Caesar, okay? Caesar, C-A-E, Kai. Caesar. Even among Caesar's gladiators, there are some who chafe because no one is sending them out into the arena that day or arranging an opponent for them, and they pray to God and go to their handlers begging for a fight. But will none of you display the same mettle? That's exactly why I wanted to make a voyage. I wanted to see what my favorite contestant was doing, how he was applying himself to his assignment. I don't like this kind of assignment, he said. Is it up to you to get the kind of assignment you like? You've been given a particular body, particular parents and brothers, a particular country, and a particular station in it. And then you come to me and say, please change my assignment? So, don't you have the resources for putting what you have given to use? It's your job to set the assignment and mine to carry it out well. But that's not what you say. You say, don't set me this kind of compound proposition to analyze. But that. Don't push me toward this kind of conclusion. But that. The time is nearly upon us when tragic actors will take their masks and boots and robes to be themselves. Man, they're your materials, your assignment. Say something to let us know whether you're a tragic actor or a clown, because otherwise we've no way of telling the two apart. We've no way of telling the two apart. That's why. I mean, if you take away an actor's boots and mask and have him play an apparition, is that the end of him, or is he still there? If he has a voice, he's still there. The same goes in life, too. Accept governorship. Accept governorship. I accept it. Use the role to display how an educated person behaves. Take off your senatorial toga, dress in rags, and step forward in that role. All right, isn't a fine voice one of my gifts? Um, I attended the secret conference, and they taught us that the one thing you have that is your biggest power is your voice. If you have lost your voice, then you have lost your power. Isn't that interesting? Wow. So here, this is Epictetus, a similar concept, and the timer's gonna go off. Not right now, but I didn't want it to go off. In what role, then, are you taking the stage now? As a witness with his assignment set by God. Go and bear witness for me. You are my choice for playing the part of witness. Is anything not subject to will, either good or bad? No. Do I harm anyone? No. Have I made what's good for each individual up to anyone other than himself? No. What testimony will you offer God? I'm ill-fated, Lord, and miserable. No one cares for me. No one gives me anything. Everyone blames me and speaks badly of me. Is that how you're going to testify? Is that how you're going to disgrace the assignment he gave you when he conferred his honor on you and made you his choice to act as his witness in such an important matter? But someone with the authority to do so declares, I judge you to be impious and sacrilegious. What has happened to you? I've been judged impious and sacrilegious. Is that all? Yes. Suppose it was a hypothetical argument he'd passed judgment on, and he'd declared, I judge the proposition, if it is day, it is light, to be false. Would that have any effect on the argument? Who's being judged here? Who's being condemned? The argument or the person who's mistaken about it? And this person who has the authority to make pronouncements about you, does he know what piety and impiety really are? Has he studied the matter? Has he learned about it? Where? From whom? In any case, a musician would simply ignore him if he declared that the D string was the E string, would be as a geometrician would if he judged that the lines that extend from the center of a circle to the circumference aren't all equal. Is a truly educated person going to pay any attention to the judgments of an uneducated person about what is and isn't sacrilegious, or about what is and isn't just? Oh, the injustice of educated men. Is that what you've learned here? Shouldn't you just leave arguing about these matters to others, the work-shy gnomes, so that they can sit in a corner and collect their petty fees or complain that no one is giving them anything to do while you step up and put what you've learned to use? I mean, it isn't arguments that we're short of these days. Books written by Stoics are full of them. What's missing is someone to put them to practical use, someone who testifies to the arguments by his actions. Please, for my sake, take on this role so that we can stop relying in our school on examples from long ago and will instead have an exemplar from our own day. Whose job is it then to contemplate these matters? Anyone who has the time, because the human creature is given to contemplation. But it's shameful to contemplate these matters as a runaway slave might. People should sit and listen with undivided attention to a tragic actor or a minstrel, as the case may be. They shouldn't behave like a runaway slave who pays attention to the actor and appreciates his skill, but at the same time is always looking around apprehensively, and then at the slightest mention of the word master, he panics and gets flustered. It's also disgraceful for philosophers to contemplate the works of nature in that way. After all, what is a master? No person is the master of another person, but death and life are, and pleasure and pain. Bring Caesar to me without these things, and you'll see how self-possessed I am. But when he comes with these things in thunder and lightning, if they make me afraid, I'm no different from a runaway slave acknowledging his master. But as long as I have only a kind of respite from these things, my attention is like that of a runaway slave in a theater. I wash, I drink, I sing, but I'm always frightened and miserable. But if I free myself from my masters, which is to say, if I free myself from those things that make masters frightening, how could I still be troubled, and how could I still have a master? So, should we proclaim these ideas to everyone? No, we must indulge a non-philosopher and say, all he's doing is recommending to me what he thinks is good, what he thinks good for himself. I forgive him. Even Socrates, when he was about to drink the hemlock, forgave his weeping jailer and said, "A noble spirit to have wept for us." But it wasn't to him, was it, that Socrates said, "That's why we sent the women away." No, it was to his friends who were capable of getting the point. He indulged the jailer as he would a child. So that was from Discourses in Book 1, section 29. So I've read that part, and we have about 5 more minutes, and I'd like to read the part that we will. Oh my God! Sorry. Computer. Yay. Sorry. The minor technical difficulties here. The computer is falling off its table. Yeesh. I think the table needs to be moved around a little too. Hold on. Ay. Hold on, Mary. Hold on. You got it. Okay, you got it. Ay. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. This was not very much different from actually being in my kitchen. Kitchen Table Publishers was really good, actually. I remember them. Okay, so then we're back to the introduction where I was reading before, and we were on page 11. So I will say one paragraph here in 11. We were planning to do this about 2 months ago, but something came up. So this is back to Epictetus's school. It is clear that the discourses constitute only a fraction of the teaching that went on in Epictetus's school in Nicopolis. They are his extra in the afternoon, when he addressed his students' personal issues rather than the impersonal systematic teaching that made up the core curriculum. They were probably not a regular feature of the school, and the letter with which our Arian prefaced the discourses suggests that they were impromptu, as does the whole tenor of the talks. Nevertheless, there are hints in the discourses that allow us to discern the regular curriculum, at least in outline. There is no such abundance of references when it comes to physics, but we can be certain that the subject formed part of the school curriculum. In Fragment 1, Epictetus asks whether there is any point to studying physics, and by the end of the fragment, it is clear that he expects the answer, yes, it is worthwhile, but don't get lost in the details. The whole of Epictetus's teaching is founded on assumptions that fell within the province of Stoic physics. And in his formal lectures, he would not have left those assumptions unexamined or poorly understood. He assumes, for instance, that the world is perfect and is run by a providential God. 1.6, 1.10, 10, 1.12, 1.14, 1.16, 2.14, 11, 3.17, fragment 23. And he discusses theological issues. 1.12.1 all the way to 6, 2.8.1, all the way to 2, 2.14.11, Handbook 31. He makes claims about the human constitution, that we are rational beings, and that the universe, 1.14, 1.17.27, 0.8.11. He claims that we are made up of the four elements: earth, water, air, fire. Earth, water, air, fire. Yeah, it's the same as Chinese. And that these elements are constantly being recycled into new forms of matter. 2.1.18, 3.13.14 to 15, 3.24.10, 4.7.15, fragment 8. He talks of a human being as part of the universe. 1.12, 7.7, and assumes a scala naturae, great change of being, 1.16.2, and familiarity with the doctrine of eternal recurrence, 3.13.4. These are all issues that would have been included in a general course on Stoic physics, along with broader topics that are not touched on in the extant discourses, such as the corporeality of all things, causation, and cosmology, mentioned at 1.10.10. Okay, so we've read that. And we're in the introduction. Sometimes I jump to the content, but we're still in the introduction, which is not very long. It's certainly not as long as the meditations introduction was, but this was Stoics Saturday. Okay. See you later. See you tomorrow. Old Kinderhook.